What are some things Redditors think they know, but actually understand nothing about? Write in the comments what you think about it. That Reddit users don't understand? Enjoy the show. Story 1, WTF is up with all the bots in this thread? Tons and tons of single-line garbage answers like, many Redditors X without Y. Usernames invariably 2 random words followed by either 2 or 3 random numerals. In every single case, the account has been active for less than a week. Whoever's behind it, take your shitty bots and fuck off. Story 2. Education. Having gone to school does not make you an expert on teaching. Teachers should do this, teachers shouldn't do that. Fuck off. Sorry you had a mean teacher that 1st grade, but I have my master's. The experience and the actual truth is that you were and deserve that detention. Story 3. Microbiology, especially noticeable whenever food poisoning or infectious disease is mentioned. People really want to put illness-causing microbes into neat little boxes with well-defined symptoms and specific timelines, when life just doesn't work like that. On the other hand, the poop microbiome transplant info I've seen tossed around on here tends to be fairly up-to-date and correct. Story 4, politics. I actually studied politics in college and have continued studying international relations and other related areas as well. Most people talking about politics don't understand the meaning of terms like Marxist, liberal, left, right, etc. If you ask them, they will likely cite a bunch of culture war divisive issues that are salient in their country only. For instance, many people think the US has a left-right two-party system. It doesn't. There is a centrist moderate-right party and a far-right party. There is no significant left such as a green, socialist, or communist party in the US, just a bunch of hobbyists that hand out pamphlets on college campuses. Story 5. Not a Redditor, but I saw Neil deGrasse Tyson telling his account of dealing with Terrence Howard a few years back. Apparently these two had become acquaintances some years back, and after a few conversations, Terrence sends NDT a 36-page thesis on why some form of mathematics is wrong, and then lists out his various explanations for why. NDT then performs a peer review on the paper where he points out, maybe too directly bluntly, the reasons why certain conclusions are false based on repeatable science and whatnot. Terrence seemed to take high offense to NDT's review, and at some point after, he appears on Joe Rogan's podcast to talk about it, and from what little of the clip I saw, play out a victim card of NDT kind of ripping his ideas to shreds. Granted, NDT kind of reminds me of Sheldon from Big Bang Theory, and I don't think that he and Terrence had the rapporteur that he thought they had. But NDT did explain that he reviewed the document in the same exact manner he would have done of any other colleague. But Terrence took offense to it. And NDT was fairly direct, and to the point, I thought, towards someone who isn't from that community, doesn't understand peer reviews, and doesn't understand who criticism of ideas isn't a condemnation of the person themselves. But regardless, Terrence thought he had figured out a way to make 1x1 equals sine 2, and then got offended when NDT explained by Terrence's conclusions weren't repeatable or scientifically provable. Story 6. What it was like is like for people older than them, especially boomers. They think everyone has had it easy, and that the worst person of a certain age in their lives is representative of all others of that age. There is so much ageism and stereotyping of older people here. It's the most hateful place for older folks. Story 7. Anything I actually know things about. I'll occasionally come across discussions in areas that I have my degree in or am very professionally qualified to speak in, and the amount of people confidently spouting bullshit is alarming. But somehow, for every other topic that I don't know anything about, Reddit is my first source of information. I try not to think too hard about that. Story 8. Infidelity is so much more complicated than just, they're a bad person, leave them. I thought I'd never cheat, and then I did. It's been 3 years and I'm still ashamed. I think about it every day and I wish I didn't. Turns out, it was a series of choices that I made that lead to the cheating, and as much as I try not to let it define me, I feel like I will forever be labeled a monster if anyone outside of our little bubble found out. I'm afraid I've done all of this work to make better choices and become a better person, and all of it won't matter if anyone found out. Story 9. Honestly, the outright confidence that people who have absolutely no idea what they're talking about nonetheless bring to the conversation permeates just another every topic on Reddit. Remember the Boston Marathon bomber? Anyone familiar with how Reddit treats GameStop stock? It's zero to cult status anytime there's the slightest bit of activity. And on a lesser front, just so many people who spent 10 seconds thinking about something and deciding their reflexive take on a new subject has to be based in fact. It's honestly exhausting. Story 10. What being an introvert means, I think. Edit, BTW. This question is so meta. Just a bunch of people, myself included, expressing their own personal biases and misunderstandings, each acting as if we are the final arbiters of true knowledge. Story 11. Structural and systemic racism. Most Redditors know that calling someone the N-word is wrong, but they don't get how a system can be racist even if no one participating in it has racist views. And they really don't get the history and how deeply ingrained and foundational it is within so many aspects of life in the US, probably other countries too, but I don't live there, so I don't know it as much. So many things that are obviously inefficient or inconvenient or just plain dumb, and if you wonder why we do it that way, and then you start digging, it's usually racism. Story 12. Mental illnesses. They love to spam the word autism, and will come up with that as a solve-all solution to problems they can't understand. Hell, to this day we don't even know what autism truly is, because it is a blanket term to describe things that we think is abnormal behavior from the expected normal behavior out of others. It's like putting something down as YP, like, oh, we don't know what this kind of behavior is yet, so we'll, call it autism, yeah? Story 13. Macroeconomics. Just assume anytime you see anything about capitalism or socialism on Reddit, it's completely wrong. Capitalism is the private ownership of means of production of goods and services. Socialism is the public ownership of the means of production of goods and services. And communism is the same as socialism, except consumption is publicly directed. In capitalism and socialism, it's privately directed. Period. They're purely descriptive terms and neither prescribe nor proscribe any specific behavior. And that includes greed and altruism. Story 14. Business and economics. As someone who works in that field, I've noticed Reddit doesn't get the differences between skilled versus unskilled labor, how much money is actually required to build a business, or how capital moves through it. They believe governments or CEO can magically snap their fingers and end poverty, but refuse to do. Reddit vastly overestimates how popular anti-capitalist policies/sentiment is, when in reality they belong to a vocal minority. Story 15. Life outside the US. I mean, I get it, I'm not super familiar with life in Kenya or Turkey, but assuming it works the same everywhere in the world drives me crazy. In some threads, people are arguing about cost of living or work or whatever, and it's obvious they live in different places with different standards. Some countries are often weirdly romanticized as well, while others are bad or dangerous because the news told you so. Story 16. I've seen some of the most terrible relationship and intrapersonal advice I've ever encountered on this platform. Another one is actually financial markets. So there's one group of guys that say just buy the S&P 500. Those are the smarter ones. The thing about all the people in the finance subs who try to trade, none of them are actually talking about how to even design a proper strategy. It's like roulette table gambling. The other peculiar thing I have noticed is a lot of people like to latch on to personal details. So you could be talking about any subject, broad picture. My mind is thinking broad picture, but the average Redditor seems to really hone in on specific details, which mystifies me since you're on a platform talking to a bunch of strangers. Lastly, if anything is ever going wrong in your life, the most common advice is hire a lawyer or you need therapy. Story 17. Mental health and illnesses. They are all arm diagnosing people in support subs when you only wanted to be listened and have someone for a brief thread conversation. Yeah, your mom sucks. It sounds anxiety disorder, borderline personality for me. You have ADHD, look up to it. If every word was real, my life would have been living hell with untreated illnesses. And no, you don't know jackass about me or my relatives to diagnose them. You haven't sit down with them and used diagnose tools. They are just straight out assholes or just annoying but good at time. Just let me vent here and have a use of a listener, or go away. My pet peeve is being arm diagnosed with autism. Story 18. If something has a licensing process for someone to qualify as an expert, zip IT, there's probably laws against unlicensed practice of that you're probably committing. No, it doesn't matter that it was just online advice. Some examples to name a few: legal advice, medical advice or diagnosis, psychiatric care. Story 19. Real estate. Everyone on Reddit hates realtors for one reason or another, and until I started reading the terrible comments, I loved my job and I felt like I really made a difference. I hate that I ever read it, and it really killed something inside me, something I was proud of, and something I loved to do. Most of my clients walked into great homes with positive equity. I had great reviews, and it was the only place I felt like I belonged and finally found who I am, should be. Not anymore though, I'm closing my brokerage and looking for something else. Thanks Reddit, I guess. Story 20. Diamonds. Industrial-grade diamonds are not rare. Gem-quality diamonds are rare. Large gem-quality diamonds are exceedingly rare. Some of their value is due to the skilled labor required to cut and polish them. Every retail item will lose half its value after purchase. This is not unique to diamonds. De Beers did have a monopoly and did price fix, but that is no longer the case. Story 21. Basically anything they've read about on Reddit. They tend to think they will have some sort of superior understanding of any topic they've read about, and then will act as though they do actually have superior knowledge, as they spouted elsewhere. It used to be somewhat true that you could read insightful stuff on Reddit, but not anymore. These days it's just talking points and funded operations. You can find them around now and then, but universally you're going to be going through 95 non-legit posters and 4 just dumbass comments before you find that single good comment that will probably be downvoted as it went against the hive mind's narrative. Story 22. What actual manipulation is. It's impossible to read any situation completely from an internet post, but the amount of people on here who go straight to diagnosing someone as narcissistic and manipulative is crazy. It's not always that easy. Story 23. How pay structures work in a job. God forbid tour supervisor is making more than you. All they see and say is the supervisor doesn't do their job and he doesn't deserve the pay and the worker should be paid more instead. They don't seem to understand how skills work. You need to marketable skills to be competitive in the market, and your boss's CEO must have studied hard and got those skills through experience. Story 24. Lobbying. Everyone assumes that lobbying is just sleazy backroom deals, donations, and freebies, but it's also local citizens talking to their city council to change something. It's also getting experts in fields to give crash courses on complex subjects to people writing the laws. Yes, the system could do with a lot of good changes, but outright banning all lobbying would not end well. Story 25. History, war, culture, basically anything in the realm of anthropology. A lot of people regurgitating the pop cultural ideas. History is written by the victors. Every country was built on conquest. Thinking people in the past, across cultures, think the same way about everything. The old joke about archaeologists calling anything they don't understand ritual, etc., and thinking they're well educated on the subject. It's okay not to know about all that stuff, of course. I just wish people were less confident stating facts about subjects they don't really know much about. Story 26. I always LOL at the amount of people with undiagnosed this or that, usually autism or OCD or some other form of mental disorder. It's like, stop watching TikTok and convincing yourself you're on the spectrum because you share a trait or two with someone who's desperately trying to get views. Yes, undiagnosed people exist, I know, but I don't think it's anywhere near as many who think that's the case. Story 27. White liberals on Reddit seem to think they got the world all figured out, and that they get to have the final say on what constitutes as racist, sexist, bigoted, ex-phobic, or eugenist, or whatever. Just from their comments, I know they don't know what growing up in an underprivileged neighborhood while being a POC is like, because I roll my eyes at the shit they try to claim is problematic. Just this overconfident and condescending tone that masks ignorance and white guilt. Story 28. Relationships. People on Reddit think that every relationship should be easy and utterly enriching, and if they aren't, you should throw them away. And to be fair, if that's what you need, then that's what you need. But learning to tolerate different kinds of people and meeting them where they're at will enrich your life in ways that aren't possible by simply surrounding yourself with people who are exactly like yourself. You miss out on a lot of great friendships and perspectives if you limit your relationships to only what's easy. Story 29. I am a PhD, and in particular, I do consulting and research for a living. My PhD is from a top 10 university, and my research broadly studies criminal behavior. I have published in and know a lot about diversity, gun crime, and general criminal activity. The same things the media gets wrong most people get wrong on here. They don't understand gun statistics. They understand affirmative action. They don't understand hate crime. Story 30. Art and film analysis. Nobody is ever going to be able to understand everything. It's unreasonable to think so. So I can forgive some things, but the sheer volume of brainless bad takes I've seen is truly mind-numbing. It's especially weird how damn puritanical a lot of younger Gen Z audiences are becoming. and how that can sometimes lead to insane misinterpretations because they were uncomfortable with a subject matter and wanted to vilify it. How to have a proper debate. Why is it that so many people here think a debate means doing that annoying thing where you quote every sentence of someone's response individually to sarcastically respond to, nitpick minor errors to divert attention, take things out of context so they can try and claim it's a logical fallacy, etc. I genuinely love to see some of these people trying to defend themselves in a courtroom. Act 2ALE, Your Honor. The prosecutor accidentally said pens when he clearly meant pen, the singular form, so he's obviously an ingrate. I also dug through his personal history, and he posted to the Reddit Saw movie forum like 20 times. So he has no taste and shouldn't be taken seriously, and he once used a false equivalency and an hominem attack. I have no patience for obvious trolls, so I am removing myself. Don't bother responding. Story 31. Some of the worst advice opinions that I've come across on Reddit has been about relationships, life, finances, politics, economy, morality. I mean, the list just goes on. I don't know if it's just because my generation was raised with the caveat that you should always take interactions on the internet with a pinch of salt because you never know who is on the other side of the screen, but clearly this is not the case anymore. The worst of it is when people take the internet seriously, like actually taking someone's post or response and conflate it with objective truth. Go to one of the advice subs and click on any given thread about, is my SO cheating? And you will inevitably find a tidal wave of myopic responses that amount to, yeah, they're cheating, you should break up, or point to the most trivial detail and presume the character of an individual because they believe themselves to be a Sherlock Holmes of sorts. Seriously, take it with a pinch of salt. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, like it, be sure to write comments, and share your stories.